was protecting the girl because he stood in front of her, but there was no chance. I mean, they went to the floor immediately. They dropped.
At the same moment, Stephen Bullock, a British lawyer, was walking with his wife and baby son. He heard shots and looked towards the petrol station.
Outside the petrol station, I saw a man who I'm fairly sure was wearing a bright yellow short-sleeved shirt, standing with both hands outstretched, holding a gun like this, and firing very rapidly into another man with blonde hair, wearing a white shirt, who was falling backwards with his hands like this, and falling back almost in slow motion. He went right down, and the firing continued. He was still being shot at as he went down.
And the moment these shots were being fired into him, how close were the two men together?
About as far as I am from you. Say 4 feet.
Really close range?
Oh, yes. Yes, undoubtedly. I mean, close enough. Let's put it this way. I think with one step he could have actually touched the person he was shooting.
Looking from her window, Josie Cilicia saw the terrorists on the ground and an SAS man still pointing his pistol at them. As you saw the two lying on the ground and another man standing above them, what happened?
I heard shots, about 4 or 5 shots.
More shots?
See?
What were they like?
Continuously.
Like an automatic fire, no? Automatic. Like that, blah, 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 blah.
See? Like that. One after the other.
Carmen Proeta also saw a gunman fire at the two people who were lying on the ground.
Yes, he bent down and with the two hands he got his gun like that and went on shooting at them.
How many times do you think he shot?
2 times at least.
Mairead Farrell and Daniel McCann were the 2 terrorists who died by the petrol station. According to our information, which has not been officially confirmed, Farrell was shot twice in the face and once under the left breast in the area of the heart. McCann, the most dangerous terrorist, was shot 8 or 9 times, several times in the chest and once below the chin, the bullet exiting through the top of his head. Sean Savage, the 3rd terrorist, was not killed in the first burst of shots, as he was about 100 yards behind the others. For some reason, perhaps because he saw or heard the shooting, he ran back towards the old town, pursued by at least 1 SAS man. Savage died round a corner beside a large oak tree. According to our 4th witness, she was near the tree when a man later identified as Savage ran past her. He was pursued by a 2nd man who had a gun in his left hand.
He just lifted his left arm and I heard the first shot. It was then when I looked back and saw the other man that was running fall back as the other man continued shooting at him.
Did you hear any warning of any kind given by the man with the gun?
No.
Did you hear him say, "Stop"?
No.
Police?
No, it just happened so sudden.
He just opened fire, just like that?
Yeah.
Our witness says she was only a few feet from the soldier when he opened fire. Later, Savage was found lying face upwards beside the tree. The witness insists that he was shot in the back, with more shots fired as he lay on the ground.
I looked back and I saw the other man that was running just being shot and just fall back.
Fall backwards?
And he was bouncing on the floor when the other man continued shooting at him, about 3 or 4 shots more, and I thought he was dead.
You mean you saw the man who was shot in the back?
Yes, through the back.
At this point, the female witness ran away, but we have obtained a dramatic account of what allegedly happened next from another witness who was in a car only a few yards back. Also wishing to protect his identity, he has given a detailed statement to a lawyer representing This Week.
The man on the ground was lying on his back. The man standing over this man had his foot on the man's chest. I could see that he also had a gun in his hand. I then saw the gunman point his gun deliberately at the man that was lying on the floor and fire 2 or 3 times into him at point-blank range. I was horrified by what I saw. Our information is that the bullets that killed Savage were fired into his neck.
Only the pathologist's report at the inquest can establish what range they were fired from. A vital question is why the terrorists were not arrested. Was minimum force used? The yellow card rules in Northern Ireland say a soldier may only fire at a person who is likely to endanger life, and there is no other way to prevent the danger. For a fuller legal definition, we asked George Carman, a leading QC.
The general rule of law is fairly simple to state. Such force as is reasonable or reasonably necessary to prevent crime in order to defend yourself or to defend others is justified in law. But quite obviously, having stated the general principle, everything turns on the particular facts of the case. At the one extreme, there is no unfettered license to kill. At the other extreme, extreme danger requires extreme measures to be taken.
The Renault car in the centre of town was the basis of fears that there was extreme danger to the public. It was suspected that the car contained a bomb. In the week following the shooting, several newspapers carried stories based on Whitehall briefings suggesting that the terrorists could have suddenly set off a car bomb by radio using a miniature device concealed in pocket or handbag. Not mentioned was the fact that the car was almost a mile and a half from the point where the terrorists died, with buildings and a city wall in between. We asked George Stiles if a remote control explosion had been a possibility.
Well, I would say very unlikely indeed. There's so much building work and the undulations of the ground and so on. I doubt if they could ever set that car, the white car, off from the other side of the tunnel. And you know, it just on the rock there's all sorts of radio waves going about. If they could send a signal, I think it would be swamped anyway by the other communications.
Last week we asked the Ministry of Defence in London if the IRA has ever set off a radio-controlled bomb at a range of more than a mile out of line of sight. The Ministry declined to comment, giving the forthcoming inquest as their reason. Another strange fact is that according to the Gibraltar police who were involved, the area of the Renault car was only cleared at 4 p.m, after the 3 terrorists had been killed, and at least 2 hours after the car was parked. It will no doubt be argued at the inquest that these facts leave out the uncertainties, confusion and fears that often dog military operations. And under the law, the soldiers involved will only have to demonstrate that they held a reasonable belief that the terrorists represented an extreme danger. And it could be argued that a threat to life was posed by the nature of the terrorists themselves. All 3 had violent records, and McCann was known to be a deadly killer. There was a possibility that he or the others was carrying a concealed weapon, and their reactions, if challenged, could not be predicted. Sir Geoffrey Howe told the House of Commons that when challenged, the terrorists made movements which led the soldiers to conclude that their lives and the lives of others were under threat. But in her most controversial statement, witness Carmen Proetta, who saw the deaths of Farrell and McCann by the petrol station, says that the incident began with the sound of a police siren and that there were no threatening movements from the terrorists.
No. There was no sharp movement. It was the movement of a person that is walking towards somewhere, doesn't know what's going on when they hear a siren, and it's a normal gesture of somebody that just moves when they hear somebody or some noise or some sort of unfamiliar or whatever noise.
And then as they turned, they must have seen coming towards them over this railing,
yes,
men with guns.